I'm here with Michelle Ferreri. She is a blogger and she is running for the Conservative Party. Yes?
Yeah, I sometimes struggle with being called a blogger
Mhm.
because I feel like I'm a little bit, that's not a great example of what I am. I'm a business owner
Oh, okay.
and a journalist. Yeah.
I see.
But a lot of people, it just depends on who you're talking to. Some people call it blogger, but yeah.
All right. So I do wish to start by wishing you a happy, albeit belated, International Women's Day.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. It's a very long-held tradition back in my country of origin, Vietnam, where
Oh, cool.
you would often, at least I would often I started when I was 8. I would write a postcard for my mom for that day as well. I mean, I'm not the greatest drawer, but I would
Actually,
often, yeah.
that's really cool. I didn't know that. I need to move to Vietnam.
Oh yeah, the weather's warmer.
Yeah. Well, then see, I'm freezing today. So that's exactly what I need to do.
Hmm. And also, I believe the 20th of October is Vietnamese Women's Day. So just so you
Really?
know,
I didn't know.
right?
There you go. Tonight at the dinner table, that'll be my fun fact of the day. Now I know. Thank you.
Right. So I'm reminded of the. I'm guessing if you don't already know the classic Greek play Lysistrata by Aristophanes, and it's an anti-war play, and it's about a group of women led by this one woman Lysistrata, who led a non-violent protest because the city-states of Greece were constantly at war with each other, and one of the I guess methods that they use to protest is that they deny the man sex.
Oh,
Yeah,
I don't know this play.
it's a really well-known classic Greek comedy,
Oh,
and there's also this woman. She's from the country of Liberia in Africa. I'm not sure if I pronounced her name correctly. It's Lema Gabogwe, and she also led a protest to, uh, you know, against the Liberian Civil War at that time, the Second Liberian Civil War, which I think ended in 2003. And one of the ways she protested was that she led a sex strike. And
wow.
yeah, it's, it's I guess it's one of my International Women's Day tidbits for you.
Now I know.
Yeah. So, how are you doing? How is lockdown treating you?
Um, it's fine. I don't know. I feel like you go up and down. It's like a roller coaster. Like some days you're like, this is fine, it's okay. And then the other day you're like, oh my gosh. The biggest thing for me is I really miss traveling. And I think even then, like the knowledge that you can travel. I think even knowing you can is mentally like something too, right? When you mentally know you can't do something, that's hard.
Yeah, I
But
know.
um,
Do you travel far and wide in your line of work?
I love to travel. Like to me, traveling is the best investment of your money in the world because
Hmm.
I think it opens your mind to experiencing how other people do things. And when you bring that home, you know what I mean? Like that's how you grow. That's how your mind grows. So I think traveling is amazing. I love
Yeah.
it.
What's your favorite traveling destination?
You know, I get asked that question a lot. I don't know how to answer that because I feel like every single place offers something because
Hmm.
there's something about it that makes it what it is. And so I think it's whatever you take away from it, right? Like sometimes even like with lockdown, you're forced to go maybe like more local. And you're like, wow, I didn't even know we had this in our backyard. Like for example, we live in Peterborough, Kawartha, right? So we have the lift lock here.
Yeah.
And you see people come from all over the world to come look at the lift lock. We drive by it every day and don't even give it a second glance. And
Hmm.
it is like a historical, like it is an international landmark. Like it's amazing. So I think sometimes that's an interesting question because I think no matter where you are, there's something there that is is worth knowing about.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, I mean, I've only been in Peterborough for like 3 years, almost 4 years for school. I'm in university, Trent. So I've done quite a bit of traveling in Peterborough, and I think my favorite experience of it is not really the destination, but the act of traveling itself. I mostly take the bus. I don't have a car, but it's nice, when the bus travels to the suburbs that I would never really have the purpose to unless someone I know live close by. You know.
You touch on a really interesting point. When you get to travel to places where you know people and you have that inside look at the like the inner workings of it, it's a completely different experience than a tourism experience. And sometimes the best experiences of travel happen in the most exactly what you just said. It's that's why I'm not a planner. Like I'm not a type A traveler. Like I don't have an agenda. I like to just go and explore because I think sometimes those are the best. You find the coolest stuff without expecting anything.
Of course, yeah. Which brings you to your political campaign to represent the Peterborough Coworker riding as member of the Conservative Party. So I think around second year I did some canvassing for the party because for the candidate Michael Skinner.
Oh, Mike's great.
Oh yeah, he is. I know that there are a lot of people who have done like more door knocking and more hands on with his campaign. So I'm merely just a kind of like a participant on and off. But yeah, I did got to experience that and feeling of visiting people and you know chat with them about the ideas of their concerns of the day and whatnot. And it's a wonderful feeling. And I thought about like well the act of being able to vote. And it's not something that we have in Vietnam. We have one ruling party, and that's about it. The Vietnamese Communist Party. Over here, I mean, regardless of what you think about the parties, there are three of them. Um, if you're in Quebec, there's four. But it's wonderful to know
Mhm.
that there are different sets of policies that one can consider.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's actually five if you bring in green.
Oh, right, yes, yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I think you would bring a whole different lens being from a communist country.
Hmm.
I think those are really interesting conversations. And I think your world gets pretty small when you just kind of look inside yourself and it's easy to complain about all the things that you have. And that's why I think it's really interesting, again, going back to travel, but also just talking to people who are from different regions and how things are done, right? Because in anything, there's good and bad, right? There's good and bad in communism,
Of
right?
course,
Like,
but I wouldn't think so. I think I'm one of those people who think that communism is all bad. It doesn't work. It just
I
doesn't.
don't, I don't think it works either. But I think there's something to be said for why it was created, and depending on the type of personality you have in play, it might suit somebody, right? It doesn't
Mhm.
suit my personal alignment, right? I don't do well with people telling me what to do. So it's
Mhm.
but I think everything is born out of, there's good you have to take, Star Wars had this figured out a long time ago, right? This the
Mhm.
dark and the dark and the light. You can't have one without the other.
Yeah, in a sense, I know that, but the problem that I have with communism and is that it is inherently undemocratic. Um, I mean, my home country, Vietnam, has gotten a lot better because we open up to the free market, and it's the same with China under the chairman Deng Xiaoping. But both governments are socialist communists politically. Like
Mhm.
they still run they still runs or centralize several of the industries,
Mm.
and of course the right to speech and the right to dissent is horribly, you know, is horrible there. And perhaps that's the appeal of what I find in I guess Western European countries is that you have the right to dissent. You
Mhm.
can be, you can be a communist here in Canada, obviously. I mean, many people would disagree with you and tell you that you're wrong, but you can be
Mhm.
without punishment from the government. But in authoritarian regimes such as ours, Vietnamese, and back then the Soviet Union, you can only be a communist if you espouse any of the different views. Like, you know, you are punished for it.
Mm.
Mhm.
Yeah, I know. I agree with you. Like, I'm not saying I don't, but I think there are people in the world who do think that being completely taken care of and having every decision made for them works for their personality.
Yeah, I don't think that's a personality trait that I would endorse or encourage. I think I think for the most part that's the personality of a child.
Oh, I don't know. I have kids. I don't know about that. But who are we to say what somebody wants? Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. Like, I think it's for some people, if that's what works for you, you left, right? Like, I mean, how easy is it to leave?
Um, Not too easy, but I mean, several people have.
Hmm. Right? So, yeah, I don't know. I'm not defending communism by any means. I'm not. I don't think it works. I don't think it works at all. I just think it's really important to always understand why for some people it's like, why do you like chocolate ice cream? I don't like chocolate ice cream, right? Or like, I just think that that's the world we have. And if you, I don't know. I have different, I always try to see somebody else's perspective. It's
Mm,
all important
um,
to think.
I do know that historically, the rise of more socialist communist ideologies and even regimes uh, comes from the economy having problems.
Mhm.
Like for example, in the U.S., the re- I think the only reason why guys like Bernie Sanders become so prominent is because they and obviously we suffered a global financial crisis and
Mhm.
people lost faith in the free market.
Yeah.
And I would like to pivot to another like more lighthearted topics, which are the I
You don't
think
want to talk
this.
about communism all day?
Oh, I can, but it's really exhausting,
It sure is.
especially when you talk to those people who like agree with communism. But
Yes.
yeah, so the more lighthearted topic, which I would like to pivot to, is the three-person interview with one Oprah Winfrey, Prince Harry, and Princess Meghan, Duchess of Sussex. And I
Mhm.
wonder what are your thoughts on that?
So I haven't fully watched it. I've only seen responses
Mhm.
about it. And it's funny that you bring that up because you could kind of tie that into communism if you wanted. Because, you know, I think there's a lot to unpack there. Um, I don't know how I feel, like I said, because I haven't watched it.
Mhm.
But I think if you want something to change and something as institutional as the monarchy, um, something of this magnitude is the only way to do it.
Mhm.
So that's how I kind of feel about it. Whether I agree or disagree um, with them, they are within that institution and they don't like it and they're pushing back. So you have an internal conflict of how operations are being done, and that's being made public.
Mhm. For me, I've always disliked, I guess, monarchies. I I find that to be one of the
Well, you
most
don't like
like
communism, so why would you like a monarchy?
It's I mean there's slight difference. A communist country is run by a politburo, and a monarchy is run by one family. And of course, the in these days when we talk about, at least in, of course, most prominently in my college circles, about the concept of privilege,
Yeah.
you find that the royal family are the most privileged people on earth, and it's only by virtue of their hereditary, their DNA.
Well, most privilege is.
Hmm.
Most privilege is I didn't, I just was born who I am into where I am, right? I mean, a lot of often privilege is not something that is a choice. It's something you're born into. It's what you do. What's the responsibility you take as a result of that privilege? How do you help others?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, there's a of course, with a lot of people, there's there needs to be, I guess, an awareness of what are the privileges that you have that you did not earn. And I believe
Mhm.
that is one of my qualms with people who are radically individualistic and conservative, is that they have a lot of things that they did not work for.
Mhm.
And maybe, for example, they did not choose to be born in a country that is either democratic or undemocratic. They did not choose to be born with or without pre-existing, like, diseases and conditions. Like,
Mhm.
we
Absolutely.
it's very lucky to be born with every part of your body working.
You got it.
And of course, there's the education system that they will put in as well, whether it's good or bad.
Yep.
But what I have a problem with Harry and Meghan is that, although they are the really one of two of the luckiest, most privileged people on earth, uh, they incessantly complain, Meghan Markle in particular, about why they are so oppressed and bullied.
That's a fair statement. And you know what I think is really interesting about this? First off, I'm like loving your conversation, by the way, because you're
Thank you
like
very
super,
much.
yeah, it's like super intellectual, which I really appreciate. I find what's really interesting about that is how much, I don't know, I'm a big Einstein lover, a big
Mhm.
science lover, and the theory of relativity. So you have to look at what is a problem relative to your life.
Yes.
So if you are somebody and you don't have any milk or food, that's relative to your situation. It's not right, right? Nobody should be living in a situation where they can't even have the capacity to think because they're so in survival mode. That's not living, right? So we should never have people living in poverty like that.
Of
It's
course.
not humane, really. But problems are relative. And
Mhm.
the other thing that is interesting is when you are inside of something very small, even though it's very big, the monarchy, it's also very, very small.
Mhm.
Um, so is your world.
Of course.
So I think there's a lot to unpack there again, because to you or I or somebody on the outside, it could be seen as whining and complaining, right? Again, your personality comes into play as well with this, because if you view things as like, I'm not a negative person, I'd rather see the what's working. Let's focus on what's working and let's grow from there. But relativity is a massive discussion. And I can remember for years and years, I would say, it's not that bad. Everybody has it worse than me. Right. That was kind of a life philosophy for me. I always would, when I was having a hard day or something, I would try to think of who was having it harder than me or who had it worse than me. And I remember talking to a psychotherapist one day, and he was a brilliant man. And he said, you can't dismiss problems that are real to you.
Yes.
And I think that was a very interesting point of view, because I think many people were raised in a culture where you were not allowed to to moan or whine or complain or to even feel your feelings or manage your feelings, right? Since you have a lot of mental health issues. But the problem is with our society is we've also gone a little too far, right? So I also believe that if you don't have real problems, you'll make them, because we've had so much generational chaos. So we've had wars and we've had all of this stuff. We're really in the most progressive humanity that we've ever had in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
We actually don't know how to just sit and enjoy it. So we kind of create problems.
Mm-hmm.
We make up stuff that's like, so I think those are all interesting, right? When you look at that.
Oh yeah. Of course, I mean, I don't deny that Megan may have some reservations about the family that she chose to marry into. The probably one of the most famous families of all. Do understand that the royal family may be conservative and constraining in some ways. I mean, I think I've watched enough episodes of The Crown to understand that. But what I have a problem with is that she is she is fully capable of doing something about it.
Sorry, that wasn't supposed to go off.
Yeah, that's an
Sorry.
accident. That's an accident waiting to happen, I
Yeah.
guess. But yeah, as I was saying, she is fully capable of, I guess, solving her problems as well as help solving, other people's problems. I have reservations with, I guess, one of her predecessors, Princess Diana, of course. But from what I've read and from what I've heard of her, Diana shows herself to be incredibly selfless. Like, I don't think she's that kind of woman who, sits on an ivory tower and complains about her treatment of the royal family. She's a woman who is willing to walk on a minefield
Hmm.
and to interact with children of, you know, countries in poverty.
It's
So,
a dangerous game to play, to make assumptions, though, right? Unless you've had a conversation with her or no, right? We don't know.
mhm.
We don't know. And who are we? Are we as big of the problem to sit around and whine and complain about what they're doing? Like, so I think, I don't know. I think you have to know people. I think we have a society where we sit and we spend a lot of time and wasting a lot of time judging other people with little information based on a show like The Crown, which I don't know how much of that is accurate either, but I really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
I
I
like
do too, and
that.
I do believe that there's a lot of like historical input in it, and although of course there are like dramatization and whatnot, I believe they got a substantial part of the history right, and I do have some respect for the current monarch, Elizabeth II, of course, because she proved to be a lot more honorable and virtuous than her predecessors. But what, of course, the problem lies in the fact that she represents this archaic system that obviously needs to be gone. Like, I think the second most well-known monarchy to the UK one is the one in Saudi Arabia, and it's unbelievably barbaric the way that they run the country.
Mhm. Yeah, I don't know. I struggle a lot because who's right and who's wrong?
Hmm.
That's a really hard thing that I deal with on a daily basis, because when you sit down and you talk to people, they believe in what they believe. And I think it's always important to listen to people and hear their thoughts and opinions and form a decision based on that. Like, I think, would the people from Saudi Arabia echo what you're saying? I don't know. I don't have enough intel to even comment on it, to be honest with you. So
Actually, some of them. There was the journalist of the Washington Post named Jamal Khashoggi. He
yeah.
worked within the royal family, especially the crown prince, for years. But then he saw that despite the crown prince's pretty, praiseworthy reforms, like opening up Saudi Arabia to the west, he finds that the crown prince, Mohammed bin Salman, or MBS as he's known, he he launches a rigorous campaign to clamp down dissent, which of course brings around to what my problems with communism. And he was a refugee to the U.S. and he wrote a lot about this, both sort of praising and condemning MBS at the same time, more condemning than praising. But then in 2018 he was murdered, and the person who administered the killings is of course the crown prince himself. And there was a documentary about that called The Dissident, which I would really recommend. It's
Mm.
and I tend not to think of people as right or wrong. I think of ideas as right or wrong.
Good
Uh,
idea. That's good. I like that.
yes, and although there's a difference between understanding why some people believe what they believe and
Yeah.
whether or not they're right.
Yeah. Oh, I wish I had your brain. I
Oh,
wish I
thank you.
I wish I could have that. But humans are a fascinating creature because they don't know they have to usually experience something to understand it.
Yes.
And so that's hugely important when evaluating people's behavior and responses. Um, I've been fortunate enough to have a lot of experiences in my life and to see a lot of reasons why people do what they do and make the mistakes they do. Did you watch the I, Tanya movie? Tanya Harding
Uh,
movie?
oh, yes. I haven't seen it, but I know of her. She's the
Mhm.
one that I think that cheated and then she injured her like competitor, right?
Mhm. She didn't cheat, and yeah, she didn't injure it. Anyway, you should watch it. It's there's always a story behind the behavior, and I think it's a lot of work to find it out. And I think the younger you are, the more black and white the world is, and the older you get, the more gray and rainbow colored it becomes.
Of course. And perhaps that's why idealism becomes such a common thing when you're like my age.
Mhm.
But I try not to fall into that trap. Um, which Going back to International Women's Day a bit, I wonder what are your thoughts on this term, the term that is being used a lot in what I would call like progressive circles, and it's woman, but it's spelled with an X, like WOMXN. Have you heard of that?
No, I've never
Oh,
mentioned it.
well,
I'm
I
old.
guess you're more fortunate than I am. um,
What is it?
because apparently the justification is that the term woman has the word man in it, and
Oh,
so thus it's anti-feminist in some way.
oh. Okay. I think this is kind of like falling into your cancel culture discussion in a lot of ways too, where I think we have to grow. And I saw a really great meme one day and it said, canceling is not the same as curation. I thought that was really well put. And I think you do have to evolve and move forward and do those things. But again, when we come back to what I said to you about earlier, I think sometimes we make things um, more complicated than we need to. And I think sometimes we try to fix things that aren't even broken.
Hmm.
Um, so I think that's important to talk about when you evaluate things like this. I think sometimes less is more, right? I think minimalism is a really important concept to think about when we try to be. Sometimes when we try to be too inclusive, we actually end up being more exclusive.
In some ways, it is, yes.
Sometimes when we try to like point out every single person, because there's so much volume now, right? The earth has more volume. I feel like it can sometimes be actually more exclusive. So it's a slippery slope. um and I don't have any of the answers. I think if people feel really passionately about something, um, you have to listen to them. But I, I don't know. I don't have a problem right now where I'm at in my life with the word woman being spelled the way it is.
Yeah, me neither. I mean, I believe the word itself is being used by a very small and very progressive minded, you know, set of people, and I find it to be ridiculous. It's the same as that term Latin X. Instead of spelling Latin Latino or
Oh,
Latina, they
oh.
put the X in it. But
Well, maybe you know why though, because there's an X and a Y in a man and woman's DNA. So like you could just keep going. Do you see what I
mhm,
mean? You just kind
mhm.
of open up. It's like let's just less is more. Let's keep it simple.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
of course. And your point about cancel culture, I think there's obviously a difference between, say, not wanting to hear a person's point of view, and we can all be entitled to it because, you know, we all can be offended, and we are offended by a variety of different things, and of course, for the sake of our mental health, we can just tune down and turn off the views or speeches that affect us, like what you did in your most recent Facebook posting. I saw that. But there's a difference between that and forcing or implying that, you know, this person should not have the right to speak.
Hmm.
This person should never have their right to be heard, or this person should be deplatformed.
Hmm.
And of course, there's this off-quoted quotation by this woman, Evelyn Beatrice Hall, echoing Voltaire, and she says, "I may not agree with what you say, but I shall defend to the death your right to say it."
Hmm.
That's a paraphrase, but still.
Hmm.
And one of the greatest gifts of Western democratic societies is freedom of speech, like I said, or the right to dissent. And
Yeah.
because freedom of speech in itself is reserved for the kinds of speech that people may find abhorrent or disagreeable.
Hmm.
This may be an extreme case, but do you happen to know the American Civil Liberties Union, the ACLU?
No.
They are a group of people determined to fight for these kinds of individual rights, like our constitutional rights.
Hmm.
They are not the same as they were years ago, but there was this case where in a village called Skokie, I believe it's in Illinois, where a bunch of white supremacists decided to march through the town, and the town was predominantly Jewish.
Hmm.
So the ACLU actually defended the rights of these, you know, awful Nazi people to march because they are just expressing their views.
Hmm. Yeah. I don't know. I phoned my friend who's Jewish, and I talk to her often. We have an amazing relationship, and we talk about the importance of preservation
Mhm.
of history. We were talking about the Dr. Seuss books.
Oh yes.
And time period is critical when you assess something, but when you remove history, you you won't ever learn from it. And so I asked her perspective on getting rid of documentation or books about Hitler and his beliefs and what he did to the Jews. And she said, never, never. We can never get rid of that. So I think it's important, but where you have to be really mindful is if somebody is generating hate, that's not okay.
Of course.
So you can't do that. You
Yes.
can't, so I think some people take that free speech and they twist it into something that fits their narrative of attacking somebody, and that's not what free speech is.
Mhm.
Free speech is not hatred.
Of
But
course.
but for people who are hateful, they usually don't even know that they are. So it's a very challenging thing to teach.
Of course, there are caveats to free speech. I don't think absolute free speech is
Mhm.
a possibility. You cannot incite violence, obviously, and there are plenty of libel laws in place, so you can be sued for defamation.
Mhm.
And to your point about the whole Dr. Seuss thing, I find it simultaneously funny and alarming because one of the very common practices in communist countries, and I noticed that in Stalin's regime, is that they would often erase the photographs or
You got it.
the written records of people.
Yep.
Trotsky is one of those people who was erased from Soviet history,
Yep.
and but it is, I believe that kind of revisionist history is kind of baked into the ideology of communism because they believe in this sort of like a dialectism that posit that there's a good side and a bad side. But for me, history is not really that. Um,
Sure.
History is just a series of recorded events that have had consequences echoing decades or even centuries after they happen. I don't believe that there's a right side or the wrong side of history. I just believe that there's history.
Agreed.
Mhm. So we should move on to talking about your music tastes. And
Okay.
that's I really I do enjoy this discussion as well, but I do like to bounce between the more lighthearted and the more thoughtful ones,
Mhm.
like topics of the day. And I guess my question to you is that I guess to run with the theme of International Women's Day, who would be the female musical artist you would recommend?
Dolly Parton.
Of course, Jolene. Jolene.
Dolly Parton is she's like she's the person that I think speaks volumes to cleverly navigating society. And she's a brilliant woman, and she knew that her appearance was important because it's what people judged women on at that time. But once she got people to look at her, she showed them who she was with her talent. And I just think she's brilliant. I just think Dolly Parton is absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, and after a while, her appearance becomes like the least interesting part of, you know,
You got it.
Dolly Parton aura.
You got it.
I would add Joni Mitchell onto that list.
Yeah, she's
Right?
great. And Cher is amazing too.
Of course, yeah. Have you seen the film Moonstruck?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I haven't seen it. I because there's Nicolas Cage in it, which I'm interested in. But
Yeah. Yeah, she's great. And Mermaids is a great movie too.
mhm.
Yeah.
I know about Cher. Just a few weeks ago, actually, I've heard of the name, but the first time I've heard a song of hers is when I watched this film Alfie, starring Michael
Yeah.
Caine,
Yeah. That's an
and
old.
yeah, she sung the song, and which is incredibly sweet.
Yeah.
And Alfie itself is a very witty movie too.
Yeah.
It's about this guy who realizes that he was wrong.
Mhm. Aren't we all?
Hmm.
Yeah, it's great. I love it.
So what music are you listening to right now?
I have a very wide range
Hmm.
of lists of music. Like I love all ranges. Like if I were to open my Spotify list, I just have to give you I do have to leave in 5 minutes.
Hmm. Yes.
I'm going to, I'll show you like right now, I would have like on here, I have Dire Straits, Walk of Life,
Oh
Cher,
wow.
If I Could Turn Back Time, 9 to 5, Dolly Parton, The Gambler, Kenny Rogers, This
Hmm.
Girl by the Kungs, Break My Stride, Matthew Wilder, Come On Eileen, Come and Get Your Love, Redbone, Don't
Hmm.
Stop Believing, Journey, I Walk the Line, Johnny Cash,
Hmm.
Just can't get enough. Depeche Mode, Giving Away a Miracle, Luba, 8 Days a Week, The Beatles, Let It Be, The Beatles. Let It Be is like my like meditation song. Like when I'm all wound up, it's like just let it be.
Of course.
Uh, Iko Iko, Bella Stars, Pumped Up Kicks. Me and Julio Down by the Schoolyard, Paul Simon, She Drives Me Crazy, Fine Young Cannibals, A Little Respect, Erasure, Bob Marley. And so I think a long time running, Tragically Hip. So
Hmm.
that gives you a bit of a look into my life. I
That's,
like a lot of different
oh
different
yeah,
stuff.
that's incredibly diverse. Do you have any, does your music taste have any commonality with your spouse and your children?
Um, what do you mean?
You know, do you share the same, musical preferences with, your
Oh
husband
yeah,
and your
my
kids?
kids, yeah. My kids, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. My daughter's music, I'm like I'm not huge into like Drake and stuff.
Mhm.
Um, she's a little more like current music that way, but I'll listen to it.
I see.
Yeah.
So we're almost at the end now, so I've gotta be mindful of your time. But it's been a
I wish I had more
really,
time with you. It's just I'm on a timeline today.
mhm. Yeah, we can get together at some point. Michelle Ferreri, what do you have to say to conclude this wonderful interview that we've got?
I want to say thank you is what
Oh,
I want to say. And I want to say I think there's a lot of stigma around conservatives and young people.
mhm.
And so I appreciate the opportunity to speak to a younger person who's in university, who at Trent University, which is usually synonymous with left-wing politics. So I think it's great to have this conversation, and only when we talk to people do we learn who the person is behind the politics. And that's really, really important. I think it's really important. And I think we need to change our political climate of how we talk to each other and how we react and how we move forward for solutions.
Of course. Thank you very much, Michelle, and best of luck to your campaign.
Yes, thank you. If you want to come work with me, I need as many students as possible. I need young voices out there.
Oh, okay. I'll be
Yeah,
glad to join in.
I would love that. I would love that. Yeah, you were a great thinker, great chat. This is really good.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I very much appreciate it.
Thank you. Talk to you soon.